The Voice from the Mountains, the story of Sonam Wangchuk and the people of Ladakh. In the northernmost corner of India, where the sky touches snow peaks and silence speaks louder than words, lies Ladakh, a land of peace, beauty, and resilience. For centuries, its people have lived in harmony with the harsh climate, protecting their fragile environment and rich culture. But today, this peaceful land is crying for attention. It is a cry for justice, for dignity, for promises long forgotten. And leading that cry is a man who believes that change doesn't come from anger, but from truth and compassion. His name, Sonam Wangchuk. Sonam was born among these mountains. He grew up watching glaciers melt, rivers freeze, and people adapt to challenges most of us can only imagine. Instead of leaving his land for comfort, he chose to stay, to build a better future for Ladakh through education, innovation, and self-reliance. He started Sekmol, a school for the children whom the system had failed. Students labeled failures found confidence and creativity under his guidance. He taught them not just formulas and facts, but how to build solar houses, grow food in the cold desert, and think independently. Then came his famous invention, the Ice Stupa, an artificial glacier that stores winter water as ice and releases it in summer, saving entire villages from drought. It became a symbol of how human intelligence, when guided by compassion, can fight climate change. But Sonam's journey wasn't just about science. It was about justice. In 2019, when Ladakh was separated from Jammu and Kashmir and made a union territory, there was celebration. People hoped for more autonomy, more representation, more development. They were promised protection, that their land, jobs, and identity would be safe. But as years passed, those promises began to fade. The people realized they had been given a territory, not a voice. Decisions about Ladakh started being made far away, in offices thousands of kilometers from the Himalayas. Local councils had little power, young people had no jobs, and investors began eyeing the fragile ecosystem for profit. Ladakhis, whose culture teaches simplicity and sustainability, began to fear losing everything, their land, their glaciers, their traditions. And so began a new movement, not of violence, but of peaceful resistance. Sonam Wangchuk, along with monks, farmers, students, and elders, started fasting, walking, and speaking out. They demanded 4 simple things: statehood for Ladakh, constitutional protection under the 6th schedule, reservation and job opportunities for locals, and protection of the environment from reckless industrialization. These were not demands for privilege, they were pleas for survival. For days and nights, Sonam sat in the cold, fasting silently on the frozen ground, wrapped in a blanket, with only the sky as his roof. Around him stood hundreds of Ladakhis, men and women, young and old, holding candles, prayers, and hope. Their protest became a symbol of dignity, a mountain's way of speaking truth to power. But what did they receive in return? Promises, meetings, and silence. Year after year, the government nodded and then turned away. When frustration grew among the youth, when peaceful voices were ignored, anger began to rise. Protests intensified. Some turned violent, a reflection not of hatred, but of years of neglect. And once again, instead of listening, the system responded with suspicion and punishment. Licenses were cancelled, activists were questioned, and Sonam Wangchuk, a man who built glaciers to save villages, was branded anti-national. Yet, despite the accusations, he remained calm. He said, "If asking for justice for our land and people makes me anti-national, then maybe nationalism needs to be redefined." Sonam's strength is not in his words, but in his silence. In that silence lies the voice of thousands, the shepherds of Changathang, the students of Leh, the women weaving pashmina in the cold, the monks praying in monasteries perched on cliffs. They are not demanding luxury. They are demanding respect, rights, and recognition. Ladakh is not just another region. It is India's roof, India's mirror. Its glaciers feed our rivers, its soldiers guard our borders, its beauty attracts the world. And yet, its people feel invisible in the eyes of their own government. If Ladakh's cries are ignored, the damage will not just be political. It will be ecological, cultural, and moral. Because when glaciers melt and trust breaks, both are almost impossible to rebuild. Sonam Wangchuk's fight is not against the government. It is for the soul of India. He reminds us that true development does not come from destroying nature, but from protecting it. That democracy means listening to the smallest voice in the largest country. That patriotism is not blind obedience, but the courage to speak for what is right. Today, the world watches Ladakh not just as a land of beauty, but as a land of conscience. And Sonam stands as a mountain among men, calm, steady, unshaken, carrying the hopes of his people on his shoulders. His message is simple: save Ladakh, and you save the Himalayas. Save the Himalayas, and you save India. So, when you hear about Ladakh's struggle, don't see it as a protest. See it as a prayer from the mountains, that the nation will finally listen to its silence.